So let's just dive right in.
Yeah,
You hear
let's do it.
me?
I can hear you well, and I think I see people joining.
Yeah,
I'm in
we're
an
good.
Airbnb. I'm not even at home, so there's like multiple confounding variables here.
No worries. We'll just get this done and we can settle the settle the score here on old Mountain Valley.
Oh yeah, yeah. This was actually all news to me. I was kind of brought up to speed yesterday, I think, or 2 days ago. What a
Well,
what a,
well,
what a saga.
it's the biggest saga that I feel like I have witnessed. Well, no. There's so many sagas in like the
Nope.
holistic health world all the time. It's like every day there's a new scandal, but Mountain Valley has been a huge one and for me a really big one because I have drank Mountain Valley water for a very long time. I'm like an OG fan and people know that about me, so they would always send me all these reels that were going viral about these horrible water tests on Mountain Valley. So I was like,
When did
I
this
would
start? Like when did
this
that?
I would
Because I also like
say
Mountain Valley. I never had a problem with it. So
no, I would say like a couple months ago, somebody did a reel. It kind of went viral.
got it.
It's the Oasis app, which I believe you know about.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah, I know that.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it was them, and it's just gotten spread around. And I think it was like when they were, I think people found out that they were acquired by Primo in 2023. So they're like, oh, it's because they've gotten so big, they're selling out. They haven't done a water report since 2023. I'm like, oh yeah, just because they sell, they get acquired
Classic.
means they're suddenly adding all these additives to their spring. So anyway, so I was like,
It
you know
used to
what,
be rock bands, right? Like people used to be like, "Oh, the rock band sold out."
selling out, yeah, no.
Now it's
In the
food
holistic
brands.
world, if you are acquired, you're suddenly demonic. So, and just stripping all of your quality and all of your standards. So, I was just like, you know what? I'm tired of people sending me this and defending Mountain Valley because I was like, I'm going to drink it anyway because I feel best when I drink spring water. I don't know, I just love it. And so I was like, I'm just going to do a test. And I've used Yale's tests for a long time. I tested my own water with my own home filtration multiple times, many times. I do it a couple times a year just to make sure it's working well. I'm not affiliated. I just want to tell everyone that I am not affiliated with my TEP score. I am not affiliated with Mountain Valley. I have zero financial interest in any of this. I don't sell water filters. I'm not affiliated with the water filtration company. I paid for the test with my own money. So I have no bias other than I'm just a fan of Mountain Valley. And so you tell me what you saw in the testing.
Yeah, well, that's a broad open because I am catching up myself. I've got 3 or 4 reports I pulled up from before the call, and I know that Mountain Valley itself has put out a water analysis report for
Which
2025,
which
which actually
nobody knew about. I think they quietly did that, and somebody actually, one of my friends sent it to me yesterday, and it looked, I don't know, in my untrained eyes, looked pretty good to me. But if y'all want to go look, Mountain Valley does now have their updated 2025 quality report on their website.
it definitely answers some questions because just from looking at the initial results, there was this concern around bromoform. Um, and maybe it's a scary thing. There's a lot of scary things, but we tell everyone, dose makes the poison, right?
Yeah,
Um, bromoform, considering that on this report they are using ozone and as their kind of filtrate their treatment method, they got to clean the bottles somehow. As long as there's just a tiny bit of bromide in that source water, it's going to interact. Bromide, natural organic matter, ozonation, you're going to form bromoform, and you're going to form it probably in really small concentrations. My hunch is that's where the bromoform is coming from. It's unlikely. I'm not an expert in groundwater kind of chemistry specifically, so I don't think bromoform is forming underground. It's probably part of that disinfection process. Um, Not weird at all that it's in there.
are you talking about their testing or my personal
I'm
test?
looking first at the report here. So this is the Mountain Valley Spring Water Report. I just opened up their website. It's like
Okay.
mountainvalleyspring.com/pages/water analysis report with dashes in between. And they have the ozone listed as their treatment system. Now, if I go to your report, what was your 6-digit TAP score ID? Do you have that in front of you?
Um,
I'll talk straight through
yeah,
that
I do
report.
actually. 4ZDEXQ.
Got it. Okay, cool. All right, no trihalomethane. Bromoform is a trihalomethane. Trihalomethanes are formed generally when you have a chlorination process or an oxidation process. that is part of a disinfection routine when that mixes kind of natural organic matter with that disinfectant. So it is not unusual to have trihalomethanes in tap water because a lot of public water systems or community water systems will disinfect with like chlorine and stuff like that. And so you'll see these THM levels throughout the year, usually really high in the summer because the water is warmer. And when the water is warmer in the reservoir, there's more bacterial life.
Yeah.
And when there's more bacterial life, they need more disinfectant to control that bacterial life. And so you'll see more chlorine in the water, which causes more trihalomethanes. Your report on this sample, this was the sampling Mountain Valley bottle. I'm reading it right now. Okay, no trihalomethanes. So that would typically suggest that there are extremely low levels or no levels of THMs in the water, which means they either used a disinfectant and removed it very successfully, or they never used it at all. But
Hmm.
looking at their on our website and looking at the report they have there, it shows that they do use ozonation. So that is how they're disinfecting. Now, that doesn't mean a couple things. For total trihalomethanes, just to be clear, there's 4 compounds we look at. So I'm like looking at your report right now, and there's bromodichloromethane, bromoform, chloroform, and dibromochloromethane. Each of those is a trihalomethane. Each of them was non-detect.
Yeah.
A lot of people come at the notion of like detection levels being too high or too low. I just want to kind of talk about that for a second. When you're running the samples in the laboratory, there are a lot of factors to manage at once, both the instrument itself, the sample itself, kind of protecting the machinery, running as much throughput as possible, the kind of needs of various different samples and different customers. So you set a detection level for what you're going to look for. And you usually want to set that detection level as low as possible without compromising the overall test itself. So a 2 part per billion detection level is really low. Can you go lower? In theory, yeah, you can go very, 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 very low if you want, but you start to lose some other, there's trade-offs associated with that. The detection I saw in some samples of the same product, the Mountain Valley bottled water product, was quite low. Like I'm looking for it right now.
Yeah, somebody that follows me sent their score from sent me their report from the other day that she did 3 out, and it was looked pretty clean to me.
If it's a really low detection level, like 2 parts per billion is, then seeing a non-detect, usually it looks like a little like a sideways caret, less
Hmm.
than 2 or less than 1. That's saying the instrument wasn't calibrated to test something lower than that. And it's not a grand conspiracy. It's just you have to, at a certain point, there's a limit of detection for every test you run. And you usually want to set that detection level at a level far below the amount that really matters or you care
Right,
about.
right.
Um, from the standpoint of the rest of your report here, I'm looking. So the THMs were gone. The bromoform, that was I think the original topic of concern, was not detected in your sample. Yes, it has been detected in other samples. It is not at a alarming level. I mean, I don't want to be the one to judge kind of what, everyone has their own opinions about drinking
Yeah,
water quality and everything on the planet. So suffice it to say that in the grand scale of exposures we have, walking past someone who's smoking a cigarette and breathing in some secondhand smoke, or maybe even just driving a car on the road, the kind of chances of getting sick or developing cancer, for example, from something like bromoform at this low of a level, below 2 parts per billion, are extremely low, on the orders of 1 in a million. So, and I'm pulling that number not out of thin air. That is the number that the California OEHA published as their public health goal for bromoform. So, meaning to
okay,
say that if you were to consume a lifetime or things like 30 years of water with bromoform at that level, at that
right,
very low level, you have a 1 in a million chance of developing
right,
some form of cancer.
right.
So it's low. I see fluoride on here. Everybody likes to talk about fluoride. Fairly
Which,
low.
like, can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about fluoride that's naturally occurring in spring water versus what would be like you would have no fluoride, right, in reverse osmosis, or if you're completely filtering, have a fluoride filter on there because it's quite different, right? If it's because fluoride is naturally occurring in spring water.
fluoride is often naturally occurring. It's like even arsenic is naturally occurring, right? There's a lot of,
Yes.
I think it's like the 13th or 16th most abundant metal in the Earth's crust. And so you'll see these scary sounding metals pop up and inorganics pop up in a lot of lab testing. And we always, try to remember that the dose makes the poison. And it's probably one line that we use perhaps too often. But very, very small concentrations of things, while less than ideal, might not be the battle you want to pick.
Yeah.
For some people they are, and I should say this, like everyone is a different body. So some people are incredibly sensitive to chlorine, right? And so if we as TAP score try to tell people like, oh no, it's not your skin, it's not your hair that's reacting to this chlorine, we might be right 8 or 9 times out of 10. But then there are people. I mean,
Sure.
I myself get kind of like funny little rash like right next to my nose under my eye when I go to this one um gym and shower in that gym, and I think it's like the chlorine levels or the towels or something. So, we're all special snowflakes, and that has to be taken into account when you like interpret these results. And fluoride is one of the most controversial ones of all. So yes, it's in the groundwater. It can, in many instances, get added by the water utility systems.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, and I am not going to be the one to profess that I am an expert in the fluoride sciences, but I'll, suffice it to say, there's like a very meaningful argument on both sides.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
mean, might take a little fluoride in my natural spring water.
it's not the worst, it's not the best, and it's kind of those middle things that I
Could you
think.
talk about the level that you're seeing there and what your thoughts are on that level?
Yeah, so I'm on your report right now, and I'm just if anyone else has a TAP score report in front of them, this is something that Reddit always gets angry at us for. We give every contaminant uh, a bunch of different benchmarks. So some people want to look at water and compare it to the highest quality possible, to all known science. And so we looked at all that research, we compiled that research, and we said, okay, we're going to take these most stringent levels of everything, and we're going to compile them. And if you actually have water quality that meets those standards, that's going to be a TAP score of a 99.
Yeah.
That's comparing everything to what's called the health guidance level. And the health guidance level is taking all the research from all the states and the federal government and taking the most scrupulous, conservative view of each contaminant. So the TAP score is based on these HGLs, health guidance levels. Every contaminant has an HGL, including fluoride and sulfate and strontium. They're all found in your water, and barium. And what that'll do is kind of give you a sense of what is alarming and what is not alarming. So um, when it comes to fluoride and a zero point 0.1 or like I'm looking here, zero point 0.1 ppm. It's 100 parts per billion, or zero point 0.1 parts per million. Um, this would be considered like a fairly modest concentration of fluoride. And so you can even go into the report, and I'm doing this right now. I'm going to see fluoride, and we're going to look at the national level um, of fluoride and compare this to that. So the national level of fluoride has an average in the well of 0.15 parts per million. That's 150 parts per billion. In utility water, we have 231 parts per billion, or 0.231 parts per million. Your sample is zero point 0.1. So lower, this bottled water is lower than the national average private well and national average water utility sample. Um, does that help? Is that like enough context?
Yeah. For me,
Yeah,
it is.
okay, cool. But this, by the way, is super useful. You can do this on any one of the reports. You can like, go into the comparison section, because we can talk all day about what like state governments and federal governments and other researchers have produced as kind of scientific research papers on what is healthy and what is not. What are the toxicological risks associated with the concentration? And by the way, these numbers vary a lot of the time, right? Science is like hard and complicated, and I am so far from being the right person to tell you that, but I know it's I know enough to know that it's true. And so sometimes the most helpful thing is not to necessarily look at all those standards, but to look at the averages in your state, the averages in the country, and comparing to other things and people. So in the report, you can do that very easily. I'm going to go back to the all results. I see fluoride was up there. We talked about the absence of trihalomethanes in the sample. – Teeny tiny bit of chromium. It's also a scary one. Um, but again, extremely small concentration, well below the MCL that the state would enforce on if this was a tap water sample, which it's not.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, what else could be helpful here? I'm kind of scrolling through and I see a
I mean,
lot
I
of what are
guess
called
just like,
trace concentrations, like
yeah,
it's usually what the industry calls them, trace detections.
which you're gonna see, right, in like a spring water versus again like a reverse osmosis where you are taking every contaminant and every mineral out. Like, can you even do that with spring water where you don't have these naturally occurring elements in it because it's spring water? It's not, you're not completely removing all contaminants, right? Like as if you would reverse osmosis where you're going to see those levels
I
of
mean,
these specific things at zero.
even RO isn't perfect, right? Like
Yeah.
so complete removal is a pipe dream. Reduction is the best word, and it doesn't get used enough. So you have every system has certain kind of rated reductions, and a good reduction in general it depends on the compound. So 99% reduction of things like arsenic and lead and these metals is good. That's very good, and reverse osmosis is generally in that ballpark.
Yeah.
There are other products out there for filtration that might achieve like 30% reduction or 50% reduction, and maybe they're cheaper. Like reverse osmosis has its strengths and its weaknesses. It also doesn't
Yeah.
remove everything. Like it's not great with chlorinated compounds. It's not great with uncharged species. So like arsenic, for example, comes in arsenic 3 and arsenic 5. Arsenic 3 is an uncharged species. And so, which means it carries no charge, which means it'll pass right through a reverse osmosis system. So oftentimes you have to oxidize your arsenic 3 to arsenic 5. Now it has a charge and the reverse osmosis can remove it. So even reverse osmosis isn't perfect in every situation. How do you address the kind of the kind of what would you call it, the basket of spring water
Sure.
minerals and metals, right?
I mean, I
Um,
guess like from your point of view, from all the testing that you see, like you said, it's like a pipe dream to have zero of some of these contaminants. And
yeah,
in your opinion, in these, reels that have gone viral, oh my God, Mountain Valley has this, this, and this in it. Like, do you feel like that's being blown out of proportion? Um, for kind of clicks and views and to sell an app like Oasis, to gain attention? Or do you feel like the things that you're seeing on my test, are they concerning? Like people are asking, can you talk about what was arsenic on it? People want to, I know you can't say, is it safe to drink? Is it not? But I mean, the scoring was what, a 98. So, I mean, can it get more perfect? Is it bad? Is Mountain Valley unsafe to drink?
I mean, I don't think it's unsafe to drink. I want to couch all of this in the fact that I don't want to make any concrete recommendations. We try really hard to, as you could probably tell,
Of course. Yeah.
be
Neutral.
unbiased
Yeah.
and neutral. Like that is, to be unashamed of it. That is our business, is like to try and be as best as we can in that unbiased job. That being said, yeah, the score of 98 out of 99 means that this bottle of Mountain Spring was incredibly safe to drink per what was tested.
Yeah.
Now let me like poke holes in my own argument here. Um, while the score is a 98 out of 99, it's based on what was tested. And I don't want to insinuate that Mountain Valley has other lurking issues or problems. But in theory, this test that we ran, and I'm looking at this, was mostly VOCs and metals and some anions. It doesn't include things like pharmaceutical byproducts of wastewater treatment processes. It doesn't include microplastics, which would be unlikely. I think it's a glass bottle, but
Yeah.
there is actually a near endless list
And
of
that's what I was like, I'm
things.
spending my own money. I'm like not gonna buy your, $1,500 test. Like for me, everybody that's watching, for me, this test has settled for myself. He can't make any claims that I'm gonna continue drinking Mountain Valley. My water that I have in my home, that I have a whole house filtration system, an under sink filtration system, that my top score was 98. It's like, well, which one am I gonna choose? And for me, I personally just enjoy drinking spring water.
I think spring water is great too. And like for what it's worth, like I'm gonna go out here on a limb and say like I would drink this. It's perfectly healthy in my book. But I also want to, yeah, give people who have an alternative viewpoint like the room to say the following. There could be other things testable that weren't tested in this test. It takes a lot of money, time, and patience and dedication to do those kinds of tests. And then you also have the statistical game being played, which is that, one sample is one sample. There's a
Hmm.
reason water utilities, for example, collect many samples throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year. It's because no single sample quite tells the same story as the full kind of mosaic of those samples, and water quality changes, performance of
Yeah.
filtration and treatment processes change. So, if you were going to really, write the encyclopedia of water quality in this brand's bottle of water, you would do a ton of testing over a long period of time. And one sample, you kind of treat it like one frame of a film. For example, you watch a whole movie, awesome. Loved Nora, great film. You see one picture, one little screenshot of that entire film won't necessarily give you the full picture. It's still
So
useful, still
couldn't
interesting.
couldn't you also say that about your own water and what everybody's using your test to test their own water for? So how do people ever
Absolutely.
feel safe drinking their water? You're not going to test it every single day. You're not going to spend that, it's like at what point are people being truly insane? And it's like, I mean, how far are you going to take it? Like, do you need everything to be zero every day? I mean, you're if you're drinking from a filtration system in your house, your city could decide to totally change what they're putting in the water that month, and your filter no longer filters that. Are you going to filter your water every single day? Are you going to every bottle of Mountain Valley water, every bottle of water you buy, are you going to test that every time? It's like, at what point do we draw the line, you know?
It's true. I mean, the purpose for tap score um, is to give you that snapshot. And you want that snapshot. You want to know, hey, is there a dangerous amount of something in my water? And most of the time, things don't go from being very high concerning levels to completely disappearing. So
Yeah.
yes, it's just a snapshot. And yes, there are shortcomings to a snapshot vis-a-vis the broader film. But that snapshot is still maybe the best you can do to
Yeah.
get some kind of a picture. And if you get a snapshot and you take a different snapshot every 9 or 15 months, you will over time actually be able to interpolate
Yeah.
a reasonable image of the drinking water quality. And the same is true for testing anything, whether you're testing Oreos or the
Yeah.
dust on your kitchen cabinet. Like, it is a game in some sense of statistics, and the more samples you run, the more money you spend, unfortunately, the higher the resolution you'll have of your information. And
For sure.
TapScore was designed to give you that snapshot and give you a good
Yeah.
one, with like professional instrumentation and certified labs, and kind of give you the best snapshot you can. But at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it is still a snapshot.
And that's for everybody watching. Most of the people, my audience, are, they know all about mold and mold in their homes and stuff like that. And it's similar to an ERMI test. So it's a dust test that you can take in your home. You send it off, and it's a snapshot in time of the dust from the sample that you took. It's not, you can't say like, oh, there's no mold in your house because you're just, or there is a ton because you're just, it's just context always matters, I guess. So,
Yeah.
uh, um, I guess, does anybody else have any other questions? Oh, somebody wanted to talk about arsenic, or you did talk about arsenic. They said, did somebody do the score? Yeah, it was a 98, which, I mean,
It's
I
great.
guess
Frankly, that's rare.
sorry. Okay, sorry. Somebody called me. Yeah, I'm not going to test this anymore. It's settled for me. Um, and I don't know, like, what are your thoughts on people kind of trying to manipulate results a little bit, or using them to go viral and sell their own apps, drinking filtration systems, that type of thing?
In general, like, we struggle with this a lot. It's tempting even for us.
Yeah.
Particularly tempting for us to like want to have opinions about a lot of test results. Um, I think two things are true, and we have to be able to hold both of them. One of them is that you need to take everything with a grain of salt and not necessarily exploit a result. Um, but then you also have to realize that a system like ours is designed to find issues. So
Yeah.
sometimes you will find issues, and sometimes someone does need to get loud and obnoxious about it before an industry or a community can respond and get resources to it. So, I want to be a resource for both sides of that.
Yeah.
Um, which is why I'm being a little bit annoying about dodging the question in a
No,
certain
I
way.
know.
But
And I
it's
mean, I also have to ask because, I was Oasis was the one that I was interested in, and so I was looking at what testing they use, and they use tap score, which I was surprised, and I was
Yeah.
like, well, I was like, okay, but so just so you all know, that app is just like a third party. But anyway, I was confused as to why y'all wouldn't like tag them and promote them when people are saying, hey, will you please test Mountain Valley, and y'all tag me. Like, wouldn't you
That's
want to promote their results?
I mean, we try to promote almost, man, we struggle with this, I'll be honest, a lot. Like, what do we promote with Tap Score? Because it's like, it's kind of difficult to kind of sit in the position of seeing lots of results all the time. And
Yeah.
especially when there are brands involved, it's difficult to like weigh in and have our opinion. I'll say this much, there's a lot of pressure to have strong opinions, and it's becoming over time easier and easier. We're kind of building the muscle to not have the opinion, but to instead
Yeah.
just like present the facts. And over time, like the more people who use the service, frankly, the cheaper and easier it gets for everyone
Oh,
involved.
good to know.
And I think what that will do over time is actually generate like a very valuable resource for everyone. Because right now the biggest problem we face on a daily basis is that like to do these things really well, to produce like really high quality, professional, accredited lab results for people, it is expensive. And how do we bring down the cost of doing that? Well, it's like simple econ 101. The
Yeah.
more samples that we have running into the labs, the lower the costs get of running those samples and testing those samples. So, and how do we get that volume? Well, we get that volume by remaining reliable and
Yeah.
accurate and unbiased,
I love
and
that.
not necessarily kind of like jumping on one bandwagon or another, even if we might disagree. So it's a tricky muscle. Like I'll be honest, it
No,
was.
I totally agree. And I wasn't trying to be sneaky or anything like that, but I was just kind of like, oh, that's very interesting. And also, like you said, and it just answers the question, well, how can somebody have such drastic results? And it just is, water is so dynamic and ever changing. And um you might, maybe they were testing one of the big jugs, or I have no idea. I don't know
We
why.
I mean, we've had so many. It's funny. We've had like every industry come after us in some
Yeah.
fashion or another. Bottled water, utility water, filtration companies. Like tap score is somewhat divisive in that
Yeah.
way. And there's like an old adage that like maybe that means you're doing a good thing or you're doing something well. And so in a sense, we just kind of want to remain in that space for as long as we can.
Yeah.
Because then you'll use this again, right? Like
Oh,
that's our hope.
I
It's
will for sure. And again, I'm not affiliated at all, and I will obviously continue to use. And I just want to ask you too, because I've had someone I was talking to was like, well, I don't trust their testing because I tested my water with it and it didn't even pick up any contaminants. And I know that my city water is really bad. Like, how does that, like, how do you
That's
explain
a good question.
that?
I'd have to look at. I'd have to. Obviously, I'm concerned if that's true. So,
I know, right? Well, I know
mm,
for myself, I actually one point tested my water and I was like just really lazy and it sat on my counter for a while. And I ended up getting back these like crazy high fluoride numbers. And I was like, and this was with my
huh,
like double, like a whole house and an under sink filtration. I'm like, what the hell? And like, I found out that my city, my lovely little city, actually does not even add fluoride to the water. So I was like, this is, and I was talking, y'all are so
uh-huh.
responsive. They were like, this is so weird. It's definitely not a lab error, but it was because I let it sit for a really long time that it, like the results just got funky.
There's a
So,
lot of yeah.
so
It's
they
not.
actually sent me another one to redo.
Oh, I love that. Good job, team. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes me happy. I think the a lot of people want to know what to test for. That's like one of the most common questions we get. And the shorter answer is, how much money do you want to spend, frankly? Because
Yeah.
if you want to spend a ton of money, you can test for a whole bunch of stuff you probably don't need to test for. Uh, but in some sort of situations, we have every option under the sun, more or
Yeah.
less.
Well,
What is
which I think is
that
cool
right middle
too.
ground?
Yeah. Well, what I think is cool about it and the way that I think that people could use it, what I'm thinking about is if, like, let's say you did some lab work and you had like crazy high arsenic on like a hair tissue mineral analysis, or like you did like a
Mm,
tox lab and you have like crazy high
hmm.
xenoestrogens or something, then you could go and pick those specific tests that you have. Because you even
Yes,
have like one off, like arsenic or plastics or whatever, and you could see like,
perfect.
let me eliminate my water as where that's coming from.
That's the right mentality. So like, typically we say if you've never done this before and you don't know where to start, we have these core kits. And they're like the most common metals, the most common anions, and the most common VOCs and maybe radiologicals. It's a kind of core test. That's why it's called core tests for well and for city water. And then we have this really long tail of much more esoteric tests that you can choose to run either based upon where you live or some other concerns you have with your health or local area, or maybe someone nearby has mentioned something in the news, or there was a fires in California, for example, that prompt a lot of testing. And so get the core test. That gives you a really broad picture. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff you don't need to test for, but if you do want to test for it, it's kind of sitting there and waiting. And I think that's the
Right.
right mentality to have.
Yeah. How often do you think people should test their, let's say they have filtration and want to test their tap water or, whatever they're drinking just to make sure the filter is working? How often do you think people should test without
If
being
you're
neurotic?
Yeah, right. God, everyone's so different. I think like a reasonable amount. If you're on private well water, once a year. In fact, we say 9 or 15 months. Why? Because you want to capture the change in season. If you always test in March, the climatic conditions of March are going to be the same more or less every year, and so you're not capturing that full picture. So if you're on private well, try to do it every 9 or 15 months. Get it off that year. So over time, you get the water quality in the winter, the summer, etc. If you're a city water or a water utility customer, you're generally a little bit, there's less variability most of the time. And so if you install a filtration system there and you run your test and the thing works, you certainly don't need to test it every year. I would say like every 3 to 4 years would be reasonable if you wanted to be on top of it.
Hmm.
Or more commonly is if something starts to change, like if
Yeah.
there's look for signs. You might never need to retest your water. Like I went my whole life not testing my water until I moved out to California in my 20s, and then and I was on a private well. So there's there's different mentalities out there, and I think a lot of it unfortunately comes down to budget and tolerance. If you have children, if you're planning to have children, that is when these water contaminants are the greatest risk.
Yeah.
Immunocompromised and infants and babies. So those are life events. If there's big changes in the neighborhood that you suspect might be impacting the water, then I would do it then. But yeah, in general, absent those things, you're a city water customer, you've got a carbon filter or something, reverse osmosis in your sink, you should not be testing it every year. That is probably
Okay.
overkill, but there are some exceptions, and I would kind of leave it there.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. I know people are asking, somebody said, we got to know what type of water you drink. What filter do you use?
I've tried, God,
If you're allowed to say.
I, I probably shouldn't say. I do have a filter I use. I have gone through many of them, but I'm also extremely lazy, and so I picked one that was best for lazy people. Um,
I'm very lazy too. I'm like, I don't want to change filters. I just had mine changed. And it's like, ugh, gotta have somebody come out and do it.
my water quality is also pretty good, so like I didn't invest in something really
I've
fancy.
heard you say that.
Yeah, it's Berkeley, California has great drinking water, and um, yeah, I've also, as you can imagine, tested my water much more than anyone should have. So I've got a good sense of not needing to test it. I don't really buy bottled water. If I do, it's because I'm in I would buy Mountain Valley for what it's worth, and just about every other brand based on taste. Most of
Yeah,
them
for sure.
are just as safe as the next thing you're going to consume anyway. So if you're thirsty, I mean, to be honest, lately I've had a soda problem. Like I'm just like got really back into Diet Coke, and that's not good for anyone. And I'm trying to kick that right now and get back into bottled water. So,
It could be worse. So,
it, it happens on a plane. Like if I get on an airplane, I'll like sit in the plane, I'll like treat myself to like a soda or something,
I
and
mean,
then
I'm gonna have a vodka, so it's fine.
I get
If I
home and I'm like, oh man.
Well, I guess I don't. Let me see if there's any other questions. Someone's like, "Oh, did you already give the score?" Yes, it was a 98. I'm going to post this live, but I'm also gonna do a reel, and I'll scroll through my on my computer, and I'll just show what all the results are. Y'all can, put your thumb on it and look through, and y'all can make your own opinion. Again, he's not gonna give his, and I'm not gonna completely. I mean, I already told you mine, and I wasn't going to stop drinking it, even if they were terrible anyway. So I was just doing this because I'm tired of people sending me anything, and it's like I'm just going to send you this, and you figure it out yourself.
Hey, thanks, Jess.
Oh, I appreciate you coming on so much. I really appreciate your time. I know you're probably really busy. Everybody, go test your water with my tap score. Again, I don't get any kickback, but I
Oh,
do. I do love your company. You have awesome customer service. Your social media person is awesome. So I
Yeah,
really, really appreciate it.
I love them too. They really are great. Thanks for saying that.
Well, thanks for having a product that helps us give peace of mind, and we appreciate you.
Thanks.